Technology today. So today's speaker is Reverend Jan Dube, and she has been a reverend through the Universal Life Church of California. She has been a spiritual and alternative healer seeker most of her life. She is a Reiki master, and she is a graduate of Reverend Marie's basic spiritual healing class. She has been a congregant in COE community for a few years now, and we are so happy to have her in our COE family. So help me welcome Jan Dube to the stage. You got this.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Gina. I'm delighted to be here today, and I'm so glad it's finally going to be over, because I just keep getting waken up all night of things going on that have gone on in my life. What should I say? What shouldn't I say? I don't want to be negative, but yet, we've all gone through some negative things, but in my mind, it's everything happens for a reason. And down the road, we find out why. And so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my spiritual seeking and between religion and spirituality in my upbringing. I was raised Catholic and learned to do prayers at the bedside on my knees with my grandmother. She lived on the middle floor of a 3-story boarding house in Hamtramck, and my father, my mother, and I lived downstairs, and miscellaneous aunts and uncles would live upstairs until we could all save money to get a house somewhere. And it was great. And we didn't really go to church. Grandma didn't drive, mother didn't drive. Grandpa didn't seem to want to take anybody to church. So we just, said our prayers. And then we moved to 7 Mile and Hoover, and I went to catechism with the nuns, and we learned about the prayers and the daily missal and about what the saints did. And we had to go to confession and got to come up with some sins, to talk about. And, so you can have your penance to say and go to communion on Sunday. Okay. And so then down the road, I ran into a metaphysical psychic. I'll call her a prophet because of what I'm going to be going into. My cousin Sharon led me to her. She had a girlfriend who she met through her son's school who did automatic writing. Well, I never heard of that. Somebody's telling you what to say and it's really not you, and she says, yeah, I went to see this lady at the Mayflower bookstore in Berkeley, Lady Irene. I don't know if anybody here is old enough to remember the old Mayflower across from the Berkeley Theater. So I go see Irene, Lady Irene, nice Polish lady like me, my mother, and I had a reading, and I was thoroughly amazed what she knew about me. I mean, how could anybody, know all that stuff? And so I continued to go and take classes. We were table tipping and we were doing, holding things and reading off of that, and candle burning to see pictures on the paper from the candle to tell us what our answer was, and all sorts of things. And there was some man named Saul Lewis there, and he was real big, and he was in the war, and he said the psychic surgeons came and worked on him at night to keep him healthy and to remove some of his fat. Okay, fine. So anyway, it was very interesting being there. And then I carried on, and then I met my first husband, and we got married. In fact, she told me at our first reading that I would be married in 3 months. So I wasn't even dating anybody at that time. And it's okay. But when I met him, it was pretty evident he was going to be the one. And so we married, and he was a lot like my father, who was very abusive to my mother. And so he was abusive to me. And physically and emotionally. And after we were married, his brother came and told me, by the way, my brother's a sociopath and a pathological liar. And he doesn't really have the job that he told you he had. He's a janitor in an inner city hotel. He doesn't own a chain of these inner city hotels. Okay, so so we dealt with that, and he was so gifted as a mechanical person that he got a job from somebody he met in the bar repairing vacuum cleaners, and he ended up with a chain of 4 different vacuum cleaner stores, and he was just amazing. But the temper between both of us, because my mother would fight back, so I was taught to fight back as well. And anyway, we couldn't continue without somebody really getting hurt, so we got divorced, and we had 1 son. And then I was led to Joyce Meyer. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She was on the radio. I used to do a lot of driving for my job, and I would listen to her talking on the radio about the Bible. I didn't know anything about the Bible. You know, Catholics aren't taught to read the Bible. Yeah. And so I was so thirsty to hear the word. So I went out and bought her Amplified Bible. And, you know, whenever I had a problem, I'd look in the concordance, whether it was on faith or forgiveness or whatever, and find what I needed to know. And she had all these CDs and tapes that I was ordering, you know, because I was such an imperfect person and I needed to learn all this, and I could play them while I was driving. And it was very eye-opening. And then I met my second husband, and as soon as I asked him to dance in a nightclub, I had an immediate reaction that we would be dancing together for a very long time. It was like, I guess, like meeting an old soul. I don't know if anybody's had that experience. I'm sure everybody here has their own spiritual stories that maybe someday you can stand up here and tell us yours too. So I had this feeling, and we started dating, and after a few years, we got married. And he was a traveling salesman for his job. He was an insurance executive, and he had to travel the country and the world. And he looked like Clark Gable. And anyway, I discovered he was cheating on me. And I would be led to look in his briefcase after a business trip and find a receipt. He called me one day at 5 o'clock from Washington, D.C. and said, yeah, I met with the client at lunch today, and I'm not feeling that hot. I'm going to go to bed around 5, so I'm calling you early. And, oh, okay, honey, hope you feel better. So he gets home, and I'm led to look in his briefcase at the invoice for this hotel he just stayed at. And there's like a $200 bar bill on there for the night, you know. So I'm, so I mentioned, you know, to him that I knew that he must have been partying with somebody, and he admitted that he knew a girl he met on the plane years ago, and whenever he came to town, they'd get together. And he says, nothing, you know, serious, you know, just buddies. Okay, fine. And then from then on, I would be led after a business trip, or whenever he was gone for the evening, he'd say, oh, I got clients in town, I'm going to take them out to dinner. And then I would be led somewhere to look at his receipt, and it might be, oh, the Hilton hotel, you got a room there for a few hours last night, honey. Why did you do that? I thought you were having dinner with these guys, you know, in the other part of town. And so it was, and I had to keep going to the Bible to forgive him.
Sorry to interrupt. There's somebody that is parked in front of our driveway right now. From here.
So I would be led to find out what was going on, and it was, and then finally he lost his job in Michigan, and he had to get another job, and he found one in Kalamazoo. And in the meantime, his phone bill came to the house, and I discovered he was calling somebody every morning at 8:15, just before he called me. He's calling somebody else. I'm driving to work downtown and he's calling somebody else just before. So I called the number and I said, this is Jan Dube. I just wondered why my husband is calling you every morning before he calls me. And first she said, ask your husband, and hung up. And so I called her back and she said, well, I'm going to Indiana with him for his new job. And I said, oh, really? I said, well, I've been there every weekend looking for houses. And I've interviewed, with the president and the CEO. And, we're getting ready to pack and leave. So I don't think you're really going to go. And I just wanted you to know that you're not the first girlfriend he's had. He's had, several. Anyway, we had to work through that. And then I got to Indiana and I met a gal. We were in Lafayette. And our son was in the Christian school, and we were going to a Presbyterian church. And we had started a Presbyterian church in Michigan, and so we continued there together. He had been raised Catholic. And so I met a gal through my Shackley lady. She said, you'd be interested to meet Cheryl. She does unusual healing work, and she's putting on an exhibit at the shopping mall tonight. So I went and saw her, and she's got massage table in the middle of the mall, and she's got this farmer on it. He must have been Amish with a long beard and black coat. She's got him on it, and she's kind of knocking his energy back into his body and putting her hands over him. And okay. And he got up and he said, gosh, I feel a whole lot better. And so I continued to see Cheryl, and she was pretty amazing. And I had Reiki classes from her, because that's what she taught. And I'd go for massages. And one day I was on her table telling her about my husband, because even though we were in Indiana, he was continuing to, run around. And so she said, I have a vision, Jan. And in another lifetime, he was your father, and he was some kind of a important man in the Roman or Greek era, and you were his daughter, and he was married to your mother, but you were his concubine. And then eventually I met somebody else that I wanted to get married. And I said, well, Dad, I met somebody I want to get married, and he says, no, you cannot leave the household, because I was, and anyway, I got so mad, I poisoned his wine and killed him. Now, this does not make for good karma. So that was why he had to put me through the hoops of the misery, that I did. And thank God that Joyce Meyer and the Bible saved me, and knowing the soul has everlasting life, and that we learn lessons in life and we carry on. So eventually we got divorced, and I came back to Michigan and went to the Unity churches, and then I met Lita Woods and Aloma, and started coming here and discovered I could continue with those classes, like Lady Irene had, the spiritual classes, and a bunch of wonderful people here that are like-minded like me, and so it was wonderful. But when I was into the Bible, what really hit me is that in 1 Corinthians 12-14, they talk about the spiritual gifts that we're all given. And I'm going to read them to you here. The gift of wisdom, the gift to make choices and give leadership that is according to God's will. The gift of knowledge, the gift to comprehensively understand a spiritual issue or circumstance. The gift of faith, the gift to trust God and inspire others to trust God no matter the conditions. The gift of healing, the wondrous gift of using God's healing power to cure a person who is ill, wounded, or suffering. The gift of miracles, The gift to display signs and miracles that give credibility to God's word and the gospel message. The gift of prophecy, the gift to declare a message from God. And to me, this is what our modern day psychics are. They're all prophets. The Bible was full of prophets that help to guide people. And that's what we have, and I have found at this church. And it's not woo-woo stuff like some people will say, oh, those are woo-woo, you know, act of the devil. This is a gift of God, and they're here to help us get through life with their special gifts. The gift of tongues, the gift to communicate in a foreign language. You do not have experience with to converse with those who speak that language. Now, my cousin Sharon can speak in the gift with the gift of tongues, but she doesn't know what she's saying. So that's another gift. Now, they say we all have at least one gift. So the gift of interpreting tongues is another gift. Then there's the gift of administration, the gift to keep things ordered and in agreement with God's principles. And I can certainly see that in the church here, the way everything is handled so well and orderly. The gift of helps, the gift of a desire and capacity to always help others and do whatever it takes to achieve a task when we're put in their company. And then there are a couple other verses that Jesus says, like, you too can do as I do and more. And physician, heal yourself, and the soul lives forever. So anyway, once I realized all that, you know, it gave me like a get out of jail free card. Like everything that's happened is for a reason. I don't have to blame myself or wake up saying, oh, if you had only done that, oh, you were a bad wife, you didn't do this and that. It was the way it was supposed to be. And we just have to, you know, hang in there and roll with the punches and do what we can to, I think, you know, help humanity and each other and ourselves, you know, and forgive ourselves. That's a big one. But anyway, I think that's all I have to say. Is that it?
That's good, thanks.
Okay, thank you all.
Awesome.